Hello, everyone. This is Tom Fox back again for another episode. And today I'm absolutely thrilled to have with me Rafael Capa. Rafael, first of all, welcome and thank you so much for taking the time to visit with me today.
Thank you so much, Tom, for having me. And I'm looking forward to this podcast. It is my
Rafael,
first time.
many of our podcast guests come from a legal background, some come from other backgrounds, and you have a really unique background taking you to where you are now. So I wanted to start off by asking your professional background and your current role.
Yeah, sure. So I have a risk management background with more than 20 years of experience at market risk, counterparty credit risk, liquidity risk, and operational risk, and with exposure to both investment banking and broker dealers. I moved here to New York in the middle of the great financial crisis back in 2008. So that gives you a little bit of background on how I was shaped as a risk manager.
And now you actually have some compliance or a compliance role in your current position. But why
That's
don't you
right.
tell us your remit today?
Yes. So basically, after some restructuring in the firm's business, I had less of market risk responsibilities, and I was offered to take over some additional compliance responsibilities. And starting with those responsibilities, there were some obvious synergies in the kind of responsibilities that made more sense given my background, like best execution. I started implementing a new tool on best execution monitoring, trade surveillance, and also trade regulatory reporting.
So, one of the things that intrigued me was bringing some of your background to a compliance role. But more importantly, having the perspective as market risk and operational risk, does it allow you to really work with those business units to help them do more of the compliance requirements? But you have I don't want to say the mentality, but you have the background to understand their own challenges and able to, as you said, maybe weld the two together. Could you really talk about how you're able to work with the business folks in your current
Yes.
role?
So as a market risk manager, I've been always very close to the business side. And also as a risk manager, I always be very close to the senior management. So basically, with my risk background, I've been always looking at things from a risk-based approach. Okay. And that's how I basically tackle the new compliance responsibilities. Basically, I want to build a compliance program that is efficient. I want to make sure that we can leverage all our resources to the max, and I want to have this proactive approach to compliance. I don't want to wait for things to happen. I want to be proactive. I want to implement policies. I want to be engaged with the business areas and know what is going on, understanding if the policies and procedures they are really customized and practical for the business lines that we have in place, and try to be engaged and try to have a really effective implementation of policies and procedures, not only building the procedures but making sure that those policies are understood by the business side and they are basically implemented on a daily basis.
Let me pick up on a couple of points you raised because I try to think through an overall risk management strategy as follows. Number one, assess your risks, whatever they may be.
Mhm.
Two, put together a risk management strategy based on that assessment.
Mhm.
Three, exactly what you just ended with, which is communicate and educate the business unit on what that risk management strategy is. But I had two more factors, one of which is to monitor the results of that strategy. And then the last one is to improve, upgrade, or remediate as appropriate or as necessary. Is that a type of overall risk management strategy that you
Yeah.
would advocate, or do you have perhaps another approach?
No, that's one of the main factors, right? That we always start with identifying the risk. Then when it comes to compliance, we need to identify which are the main risks that we are facing right now with our business lines, right? Once we identify, we need to measure, we need to monitor, we need to report and communicate and remediate, right? And that's really the role that I'm applying from my risk management background to compliance. I'm trying to apply those principles, but there is one more that is important. When you are applying these principles, you have to be proactive about risk management. And the same with compliance. I have seen in some occasions that firms tend to behave reactive. There's new regulation, or there are news or newsletters that are pointing to new regulation coming. That should be the time when you should be acting and considering how that regulation is going to impact on your business lines, or if it's not going to impact nothing. But when it's too late and the regulation is in place and you didn't have time to implement those, is when you're already in trouble. So proactive is something that I really care.
Do you in your position, do you obviously you report to someone, but do you
Yeah.
report to senior managements or do you report to the board of
Yes.
directors? All of the above, none of the above?
Yeah, so for the compliance responsibilities, I report to the chief compliance officer, but also for which is also a member of the board, and also for the risk management responsibilities. Before I used to report directly to the CEO as a risk manager. Now with the compliance responsibilities, I report to the CCO, which is also a member of the board.
How would you say your background in risk management helps you with your compliance function? And I say that as a lawyer, or at least professionally trained as a lawyer. So I tend to think of the legal side of things, but you really think about it from a more operational or managerial side. Could you just say a few words about that?
Yeah, as a risk manager, some of the important skills that I value were, analytical and quantitative skills. And basically those skills in the way how I applied to compliance, it was in terms of building a better compliance with less resources, which is really the case for many firms. And in that sense, anything, and in Spain, we used to have this phrase that we used to call manuel to everything that was done manually. And we try to run away from those situations. So, first of all, trying to automate, leverage on data management, databases, try to basically optimize the usage of the tools that we have available to automate our daily compliance responsibilities and try to focus on how to improve the framework, how to be proactive about it, how to assess emerging risks, new regulations. So that's where we add value really to the compliance role. And that's my approach. Some of the basically skills that I'm transferring from the risk background.
Let me end by asking you the following. Where do you see the role of compliance going forward? You talked about the data analytics, and that's one of the themes I hear from people like yourself. But is it really the use of data analytics in compliance, learning from people like you who have done it literally for years in risk management, or perhaps something else?
Yeah, so data analytics is very important because it allows you to have like early signals, which can be done on an intraday basis, even for some situations. I don't do it that way, but for everything that has to do with, for example, trade surveillance or best execution, we need a lot of data to monitor these factors. And for that purpose, I will say that leveraging on data, the main topic that comes naturally is artificial intelligence, right? We know that this is something that can help us to become a more effective compliance department somehow, right? If we are able to basically manage this new technology, understand the underlying concepts, I think it's going to help us tremendously in our role for the years to come. And I think we should accept it and start learning basically the main concepts and start using it, for example, for analyzing millions of documents, policies. This can help. Artificial intelligence can be used for this purpose, right? Where we spend a lot of resources. Can be done, for example, for providing instant answers. We can have like a bot online that provides answers to questions from employees about policies and procedures. These are some of the approaches that I can think of when it comes to large language models that are now popular. And there are other things. Climate risk is another topic. And this is something where I got a certificate back in 2021. It was more for personal interest. But climate risk is a topic where many firms are now approaching from the risk management point of view, from the business point of view, from top management. But compliance, there isn't, is lagging that somehow the way how I see it is lagging. And there are some clear reputational risk and in climate risk, reputational, operational, and legal risk involved in disclosures, in greenwashing. So these are some of the key topics that I see are going to shape the compliance role for the years to come.
Rafael, unfortunately, we are near the end of our time for this episode. But before we leave, I wanted to ask you if our listeners wanted to connect with you or find out more information about you, what would be the best place for them to go?
Yeah, they can send me a message in LinkedIn, Rafael Capa, and that would be the place where we can talk.
Rafael, I wanted to thank you again for taking the time to visit with me, and I look forward to continuing this conversation.
Sounds great. Thank you so much, Tom. Take care. Thanks.